This is about the carbon paper transfer method. It's a method of reproducing a drawing or photograph without the drawing process involved. You're basically tracing. And if you prefer to do drawing, it's still way better for you. However, this makes life easier. And for me, sometimes I'd rather not spend all of my time reproducing it by drawing and instead learn how to do it by transferring. This method has been done since the Renaissance or before, and again, it's not a crutch for drawing, but it does expedite things quite a bit. So what I've done is I've taken a photograph and I'm going to size it to the sheet of paper I want. And I've taken, and I use my printer. And I'm going to go ahead and take the back of that photograph. And I'm using my graphite stick. And it comes anywhere from 2B to 9B, just like a pencil. But it has to be a graphite stick and not a pastel or not a Prismacolor or anything. Graphite is what's inside of a pencil. And you're going to see by taking the side of the stick and rubbing all over the back of the image that you want. It muddies it up and really puts down a coat of graphite. And then I'm going to go ahead and buff that by using a little Kleenex or paper towel. And this is just to get the pores of the paper filled in a little bit better. And if you want, you could go over it one more time softly. And that should do the job. Now I'm going to decide where I want it placed on my white watercolor paper. And I'm going to put it down here in the corner. But if you had a use for it else in another area, you could always do that. And I'm going to take a piece of tape and tape down my drawing or my copy. So I'm going to create basically a hinge here. So I'm going to be able to take that when I do my tracing, I'm going to be able to look underneath it. Now I'm going to use a pencil, and I'm using a 2B or an HB. Either one would work fine for this. And I'm going to start out testing my line and finding out if I'm pushing too hard. I don't want to score through the paper, and then if you did that, then you'd end up scoring the watercolor paper underneath. But as you can see, I've got a decent line, and it does take a little bit of practice to know how much pressure you should apply. What you don't want to do is depend so highly on this method to the point where you're drawing every tiny little hair on this dog's face. It's mainly just for placement. It's also a method of enlarging images. So if you think of the Sistine Chapel ceiling, they did not freehand draw that, or Michelangelo didn't freehand draw that at all. What he did was draw it small first, and then they duplicated it in a larger scale and transferred the drawing using a similar method to what we're doing right here. And now I'm going to check and see I've got a decent application of graphite. And I'll do the nose. And one thing sometimes I do is I push too hard with my hand and it causes like an imprint. So you may want to make sure you're not doing that. Watercolor paper, of course, has lots of pores, and you will have that texture to have to deal with, but you're going to be coming back and redrawing on top of it. So again, every little hair isn't important. What is important is the placement of where things are. He's got a fold in his neck, and another fold here, and so on. I'm looking at big patches, big shapes. I used to think this was a cheating method, but I think that as long as you keep your drawing skills sharp and you're able to save time with this method, it is not cheating. Many, many artists have used this for years. All right, well, I'm going to stop here. And I'm in a good place. And so there you go. And now if I wanted to, I'm going to wipe out the graphite from my hand. I could come back and take my photograph and go back and make some changes if I needed to. Or put my own touches on it. So it's just not a Xerox copy of the photograph. Now, sometimes you want that photoreal quality about it. And if that's your goal, then this method is for you. Okay, that's it. I hope that helped.